Hi, everyone.
This is B from Always Be Traveling. I'm a US citizen living in Greece with a digital nomad visa, or also known as a long-term visa. And I wanted to create a video just to share everything about the application process so that if you're interested, you can apply as well. I do want to share that for this process, I don't think that the general person would need a lawyer in order to apply. I know that there are a lot of lawyers out there for this specific process, and I don't think it's absolutely necessary. I think that as long as you're organized and can make sure you have all of your ducks in a row, you can do this on your own as well. I also want to mention that with this specific type of visa, the digital nomad visa, you do have the option of waiting to apply for the visa until you're already in Greece. So, with an American passport, you could travel to Greece for up to 3 months. And once you're there, just apply at a consulate or embassy in Greece for the digital nomad visa. However, this is not the route that I took. I preferred to apply in the United States and wait to see if I would be approved before moving to Greece. So, that's what I'll be talking about today. The first thing that you want to do is make an appointment at your nearest consulate or the consulate, more specifically, that serves your region. I think there are 6 to 8 consulates in the US, Greek consulates, and you want to make sure that you book the appointment at the consulate for your region so that you don't run into any issues throughout the application process. I made my appointment at the Los Angeles consulate back in March of last year, and the earliest appointment that they had available was July. So they do open up appointments in waves, from what I know. You just want to make sure that if you check the website and there are no appointments available, that you keep checking multiple times daily. The next thing you want to do is email the consulate and letting them know the visa that you'll be applying for and asking for the specific list of requirements for the visa. I know that these requirements can be found on the consulate's website, but each consulate has slightly different requirements, and this just covers your butt if you show up to the appointment with specific documents and they have any questions or tell you that it's wrong. You can pull up your email and show them, hey, you guys are the ones who told me this is what I needed to have. I'll make another video soon about the issues that we ran into at our consulate appointment, but this is what I would recommend. Okay, so next I'll share the documentation that was required for my digital nomad visa appointment at the Los Angeles consulate. First, a completed and signed application form with 2 passport-sized photos. Next, a valid passport, a criminal record certificate or background check, a medical form completed and signed by your doctor, proof of travel medical insurance covering the duration of the intended visa, a prepaid FedEx envelope with a return label, proof of accommodation in Greece, flight confirmation, a solemn declaration, a contract of employment, proof of income, and cash.
So now I'm going to break things down a little bit.
And tell you a little bit more details about each. So, the completed and signed application form with 2 passport-sized photos. You can find the application form on the consulate's website. It should say something like application for a long stay visa in Greece. You will print this, fill it out, sign it, and attach 2 passport-sized photos. You can get those photos taken at places like UPS, CVS, Walgreens, etc. Personally, I taped my passport photos onto the application with Scotch tape because that's removable. I've heard stories of people having issues if they stapled or glued their pictures onto the application. Next, you'll need your valid passport and a FedEx envelope with return label. For the passport, it's pretty self-explanatory, but you do want to make sure that it's valid for as long as your visa would be valid for, and then a little bit extra. So, for example, if your visa were to begin January 2026 and last until January 2027, you'd want to make sure that your passport is valid until at least March 2027. The other thing worth mentioning is that the consulate will hold on to your passport while they make their decision, and you will only get that back at the end of the process once they've decided. You can either return to the consulate to pick up your passport, or they will mail it back to you with or inside the FedEx envelope. A little bit more about this. I believe that each consulate is different. So, for example, the Chicago consulate may require a UPS return label instead of FedEx. This is why I recommend contacting your specific consulate. The Los Angeles one refused to accept someone else's UPS and USPS return labels and demanded FedEx only when I was there for my appointment. So when creating the label ahead of time, you also want to make sure you write your name and address for both the sender and the recipient. The next requirement is a criminal record certificate or background check, also called an identity history summary check. And you can request this online at FBI.gov. So you go online and request the background check and pay the fee. Then you need to go and get fingerprinted. Fingerprinting can be done at a USPS location, but not all locations offer this service. So you can find a USPS location that does the fingerprinting by searching this online. The background check results came almost immediately by email once I completed my fingerprinting, but you do want to make sure to request a printed or physical copy by mail for the visa. That's what you will submit. The LA consulate did not require an apostille on my FBI background check, but this might differ by consulate. Next, you'll need a medical form completed and signed by your doctor. This is a specific medical form that can be found on the Greek consulate's website. It For the Los Angeles consulate, it was included as an appendix in the document translation of the general supporting documents for national visa. So on their website, you would navigate to home, visas, the consulate that serves your location, then national visas, entry and residence, and then supporting documents. So you just download this form, fill it out, and obtain your doctor's signature. Some doctors will want to do testing or blood work, etc., but this is not required in my case. I think it just depends on your doctor and how comfortable they are in completing the form. Another requirement is the proof of travel medical insurance covering the duration of the intended visa. For the travel insurance, I used a company called World Trips. I did a bunch of research, and to be honest, I couldn't find a single company with all positive reviews. World Trips was what I ultimately decided on due to the price, the duration of the coverage, and some positive experiences in the reviews. Once you book your coverage, you can print a page showing your proof of insurance directly from the online account.
So you also
Need proof of having an accommodation in Greece. For my proof of accommodation, I used a confirmation email from Airbnb. From my understanding, the accommodation proof must be for at least 3 months. So I booked an Airbnb that had free cancellation because you will not be refunded by the consulate if your visa ends up getting denied. If you have a friend or family member to stay with, it's my understanding that you will need to have a letter from them inviting you to stay and have it notarized by Greek authorities, and then that's what you would submit. You do want to make sure that you give yourself plenty of time after your visa appointment for your accommodation to begin. So, for example, my appointment was on July 17th, and my accommodation in Greece began September 20th. This makes sure that you have time to wait for the consulate's response and even cancel the accommodation within the free cancellation window if you need to before the trip if you don't get approved. Based on my experience, the date that my accommodation began, so the first day that my Airbnb was rented, that was the start date issued on my visa.
you also need flight.
Confirmation. So for that, again, best to book something that is refundable in case your visa is denied. My partner decided to take a cruise to Europe instead of flying, and then he took trains to Greece, and the consulate did accept his ticket confirmation for those in lieu of an airplane ticket. Because it is a digital nomad visa, you do need to show proof of income. At the time I applied, this was set at 3,500 euros per month, and this amount goes up if you're applying with a spouse or children as dependents on your visa. For the proof of income, I provided a few things. I provided the last 2 years W-2 forms and my past 3 months checking and savings account statements. However, during my appointment, there was a whole issue where they asked me to leave and return with a printed document specifically showing only my work deposits rather than my full checking account statement. I wasn't able to do this online, so I did have to physically go to my bank to request it. Next, you'll need to bring cash to pay the application fee in person at your appointment. They did charge me and my partner different amounts, so I wouldn't really completely rely on the number that they provide on their website of the charge. I brought 300 USD just to be safe. One of the last things that you'll need is a contract of employment. So, this contract needs to cover the duration of the intended visa or be completely open-ended, and it needs to state that you are a fully virtual employee. And then finally, you need to provide a solemn declaration. This is a short document that you can type up, print, and sign that just states your intention to live in Greece and work remotely and declare that you will not be seeking employment in Greece.
I also did just want to include
Other pieces of helpful information for you. One thing I would recommend is that once you have all of your documentation together and ready for your appointment, that you would go and get photocopies of the entire packet. This packet that you're going to submit for your application will not be returned to you. And so this is helpful to have just a backup copy to keep for your own records. And also, if you decide to apply for a residency permit in Greece after you have all of this documentation already. The next little point I want to include is that the consulate's website states that they have 10 calendar days to give you a response about your visa approval. For me, it took 15 days instead of 10, and I have heard just differing things on this.
another good thing to know is that you will not receive
The consulate's decision until you physically receive your passport with the visa inside or not. We were anxiously waiting to hear approval or denial via email, and we never did. We just had our passports show up one day. So just be aware of that.
Okay, so those were all of the requirements.
That you'll need to include in your application for the digital nomad visa in Greece. Let me know what comments you have. I do plan to make more videos soon about this process. So if you leave comments and questions, that'll really help me have a better idea of what specifically you still need to learn or are interested in.
Last but not least,
If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe to my channel. It'll go a long way and really help me out in making more helpful videos like this one. Thank you and good luck.